Hi, my name is Vernon Oliver. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. Own an organization called Hargrove, Oliver and Parker Incorporated, and we've been in business for about 21 years. Um, we are a community-based organization dealing with people with serious mental illness and substance abuse. Our organization, we have individuals between the ages of 5 up to age 99. Oftentimes, people enter our doors through referrals from hospitals, psychiatric agencies, community-based organizations like local mental health organizations, treatment centers where they've been for 30 or maybe 60 or 90 days for substance use disorder. We also do medication management, which is very important. And we also offer for individuals who are suffering a tremendous trauma, housing, temporary housing, which is a tremendous asset for individuals who are suffering from substance use disorder. Most of the clients come to us from various community settings. They can be living in their homes, they can be at our sober living house, they can be living in other assisted living programs. I grew up in Brooklyn, New York, in an area called Bedford Stuyvesant, Brownsville, which is, an area that's historically been ravaged by drugs and poverty and things around that nature. The crack epidemic ravaged my community back in the early 80s. It was fortunate for me that I had church and my family would ship me off to South Carolina in the summertime because as an African American male, summertimes in New York City was probably one of the most dangerous times because there was no structure with you not being in school or being having after school activities to go. So oftentimes we found ourselves getting into trouble and doing things that would later have an impact on our lives. So being shipped off to South Carolina, having to be in church 3 days a week, playing football, doing some of the other things, engaging in things to keep me busy, kept me from entering a life of crime and drug addiction. Having returned back to New York after graduating from the University of South Carolina and witnessing at least, a good portion, 20 to 30% of the people that I grew up with, um, either strung out on crack cocaine, either in a situation where they just hadn't gone anywhere, led me to get into a world of social work. I worked in New York City at an organization uh, called the Hudson Guild, which is basically the philosophy was, I don't know if you know anything about New York, New York has very, New York City has one of the highest per capita for square foot real estate. And the goal was to keep people who were poverty in a central area that was controlled. So they had what they call settlement houses. And in these settlement houses, the goal was to have everything in the settlement houses that poor people could need without traveling outside and going up to Midtown. So you got the hospitals, you had grocery stores, everything was right there. Um, so having that experience, I said, well, why is it that people want to keep people captured in one area and keep them confined and keep them poverty stricken? So I took a step back and I said, well, that's not the way it's supposed to be. The reason why people or the powers that be want to keep people separate and keep contained to a particular area. It, the history of the United States is uh, fueled on separations of individuals based on people think race is one of the major separations, but in actuality, it's poverty and the gap in income. And if you keep people, which was very strange to me, to just understand that I actually have friends in Brooklyn, New York, um, that for a great portion of their life, they've never traveled to New York City, Manhattan, and which is 2 miles away. But they have not traveled to New York City, meaning Manhattan, because they didn't think that was a place for them to go. There are generations of individuals who have grown up in a project in New York City where the mother, the grandmother, and the daughters and the sons are all in the same apartment and have been in that same apartment. Now, fortunately for me, I had the opportunity to travel outside of the state of New York and go to South Carolina, where I saw individuals were able to spread out, and venture into other areas. So I actually had friends that we would have debate, really and honestly, about if there were more Black people in the world, in the United States, than white people, because their whole neighborhood was surrounded by African Americans and Hispanics, and they didn't get an opportunity to see many Caucasian individuals or many people and they actually thought that the United States was more comprised of Black people than white people or Caucasian people. So that's the kind of naivete that keeps people in and suppressed because of that kind of thinking. And that's why the housing developments, the settlement houses, and those things were developed to keep people confined to a particular area, so they don't venture out, so they don't understand the power of their economics. They don't understand the power of them collaborating with other individuals. That's why I'm so happy for my social work training, where community organization came into place, where it taught me about organizing communities and helping individuals to become empowered, because that is so important. And also the proliferation of, if you remember Iran-Contra, the proliferation of the concentration of drugs being targeted specifically to minority and poverty communities, and not spread to the majority community, but specific targets. So if you keep people concentrated in this area, then you can target certain products, Kool-Aid, sugar-based product to increase diabetes, crack cocaine, methadone, all those things can be specifically targeted to a particular area. And that's what that's about. ABC stores. In poverty-stricken areas, you see more ABC stores, almost as many more churches, grocery stores, and fresh products and things like that. All of those things come secondhand in poverty-stricken areas, and they sell them at a premium price. So you're spending more of your income for those convenience stores. So that's why it's concentrated. So I started a community-based organization and working with a place called Harlem Interfaith Counseling Services. And that is where I got my fundamentals, because that was one of the first times I've seen a African-American run organization that was actually providing services to the community. That kind of intimate relationship that taught me about, hey, I can create my own organization. When I got to Virginia, I saw the opportunity to do that. And I said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to create an organization that is rich in culture and provide services to them for people who have serious mental illness and addiction. I was introduced to acupuncture about 15 years ago with one of the local community service boards around treating addiction and even helping with some of the mental health challenges that people have, and acupuncture using acupuncture to help treat the cravings from addictions and things like that. Then I learned a little bit more about NADA when I met Dr. Carter. And Dr. Carter explained to me the rich history of NADA, and then we started implementing it again, like during our Thursdays, non-traditional interventions. When we weren't doing these non-traditional things, we would have people who would pretty much go maybe 20, 30 days without relapse. Now we have people who are going like 2 to 3 months without relapse. And I really think it's because we've added these additional services to it. And we went to a training and we learned so much of how the combination of the community-based services and NADA can work together to help us improve our services. The thing that I think that we have in common so much is both rich community based services and working with the community to bring about recovery and treatment, moving away from the traditional methadone treatment, Suboxone, and things like that to help treat addiction, but using some more of a holistic approach. We're getting better at it. In the future, my goal is to make sure that we get most of my clinicians trained in acupuncture so that we can offer it more throughout the state. Right now in the Richmond, Virginia area, there are only 3 individuals that do the acupuncture piece and a lot of stuff. And we are one of those individuals who are moving into that area.